Despite the fact that there are thousands of tourists, there's still an incredibly local feeling here. Like, Madrid is a proper city. Hey y'all, and welcome back to A Sense of Travel. I'm Michael, and I'm on a mission on this channel to document all 5 senses of as many cities, countries, and natural landmarks all across the planet as I possibly can, so that I can immerse you into those experiences through the screen. Well, this week, we are in the royal and elegant capital of Spain, Madrid. I cannot wait to bring you guys along through all 5 senses, so let's dive in.
Despite being one of the largest cities in all of Europe, Madrid, Spain is often quite overlooked. In fact, last year it was only the 14th most visited city on the entire continent. Here's the thing though, when it comes to Madrid, it's hard to even know where to start. While it may be famous for those delicious tapas, sweet sangria, Baroque royal facades, grand plazas, and passionate flamenco dancers, these things barely scratch the surface of the Spanish capital city. In March of 2025, I had the privilege of visiting this regal Spanish metropolis, and let me just say, 14th place among the most visited cities in Europe is wild to me. Madrid is incredible. Right in the heart of Spain, rising over 2,000 feet above sea level, Madrid is the largest city in the country, and the second largest in the European Union, with over 3.4 million people calling the city home, and over twice that in the greater metro area. A city this size, with over 1,000 years of history, stories, and lore, can't be captured in the same way a typical travel vlog or checklist attempts to. To really place yourself into this royal metropolis through the screen, you need to use all 5 senses. As we explore the heart of Madrid, one of the best urban oases in the world, Europe's largest royal palace, the pure passion of flamenco dance, world-class art, and the classic tastes that define the city, my goal is to fully immerse you into the sights, sounds, tastes, feels, and smells that create the experience so that you can accurately imagine yourself wandering about the regal, colorful, and quintessentially urban streets of the city alongside me. If this approach to travel vlogging is your jam, hit that subscribe button. There's a lot of world to discover yet. Alright y'all, let's dive into the adventure together. We'll kick off our journey in Madrid's patchwork maze of a city center, or Centro. My first impression of Madrid was a warm and colorful one. The tightly packed, iron balcony-adorned buildings, rising above winding stone-cobbled walkways and narrow streets at a relatively uniform 5 to 10 stories tall, are an eclectic collection of beige stone, brown brick, and painted facades of burnt oranges, reds, and pale yellows. In many cases, these buildings are dripping in golden-laced regality and craftsmanship. Flamboyant Baroque and Art Nouveau architecture rise above the street-level storefronts with a sense of Spanish royalty. Even the lampposts are topped with ornate royal crowns. As you imagine yourself on a casual, lazy stroll through the colorful old Madrid city center, imagine the sensation of your feet landing on cobbled stone, while the sounds of pigeons, outdoor diners chattering, birds chirping, occasional bells chiming, and car engines fill your ears. Depending on the time of day, the air can be a bit windy, misty, and chilly. Or perhaps, as the sun comes out, it can feel like the warm, pleasant sun basking on your skin. To top it off, imagine the sense of damp stone, buttery bread, cigarette smoke, and a perfumey musk. Cool little markets like the San Miguel Market pop up in between the dense cobbled streets where Some of Spain's most delicious delicacies like Iberian ham and chocolate sauce for churros can be found, adding a savory and sweet chocolatey scent to the air. Madrid has been around for some time. I'm talking since the 9th century, but the centerpiece of the city dates to the 1500s. Plaza Mayor.
So Plaza Mayor was once the town center for Old Madrid, and it is beautifully crafted in Baroque architecture, and, fun fact, is home to 237 balconies, which is wild.
First built between 1580 and 1619, this balcony-adorned, stone-cobbled, rustic red plaza was once the formal center of Old Madrid. It was also the town's main market. To place yourself into the vast, Baroque masterpiece of a square, imagine the sense of wet stone and fried foods wafting through the cool, breezy air. Like the rest of Centro, the plaza is filled with the sounds of softly chattering crowds, birds chirping, and cutlery clinking. Well, if everyone's awake, that is.
In most big major metropolises, the first thing in the morning on a weekday is going to be loud, it's going to be bustling, and it's going to include everybody running to get their morning coffee and trying to get to work. Well, here in Madrid, at 8 a.m. on a weekday, it looks and sounds an awful lot like this. And that's because of siesta culture. So the workday starts considerably later in the day. There's a large napping period in the afternoon for people just to relax, businesses close, and then they go back to work and they stay up late through the night. This is cool culturally, but it's bad for me finding a cup of coffee at this time in the morning, so I don't know.
While Plaza Mayor was Madrid's historic centerpiece, there's a newer square on the block, well, kind of, for the Madrid of today. The Puerto del Sol, or the Gate of the Sun. Puerto del Sol is the formal center point for the city, and it's where all Spanish roads originate. In fact, it was originally one of the gates to the royal city. The sprawling cobbled plaza, surrounded by 5 to 6 story buildings beneath soft beige, creamy yellow, and brick facades, is absolutely bustling. It almost feels like Madrid's answer to Trafalgar Square in London. Crowds of tour groups, following their leaders holding up umbrellas, gimmicky costume guys, and street musicians pack the semicircle plaza, sending the sounds of chaotic bustle and the street music itself into the cool air. The sounds of trickling fountains and occasional bell chimes from the Royal Post Office bring a small amount of balance to the chaos. While the scent of cigarette smoke is still prominent here, there's also the rather sweet smell of melted chocolate for churros nearby. The tree-lined streets of Centro are a shopper's and foodie's paradise. Those pedestrian-only cobbled streets are jam-packed with literally any store you can imagine, with a surprising amount of shoe stores in particular. Giant, flashing, and colorful LED screens surround you in places like Plaza de Mayo, which feels like the Spanish Times Square. It's around here that Madrid starts to feel expensive. And I mean very expensive. Madrid's version of the Champs-Élysées, Oxford Street, and Fifth Avenue sits along the Gran Via. It's here that you begin to understand just how much wealth the Spanish Empire pulled in during its heyday. Absolutely dripping in flamboyant, eclectic, and intricate stone architecture, Gran Via is home to quite a few high-end shops whose decorative, stone, Baroque, and Art Nouveau facades match their sophistication and class.
Alright, so to place yourself imaginatively into the boulevard of Gran Via, well, it's chaotic. This is the exact opposite of Madrid at 8 in the morning. There's so much noise, so much bustle. You have auto traffic going by. You've got those weird, car alarm chirping car wash or crosswalks, car washes. The air smells like cigarette smoke and perfume and fresh rain on the concrete. And of course, my favorite part has to be the architecture itself. I mean, there's so much Baroque and Rococo and Art Nouveau architecture in Madrid, and especially along Gran Via. I mean, it's beautiful.
You'll notice that the boulevards here are quite a bit wider than other parts of the city. And speaking of those wider streets, I mentioned before those car alarm sounding crosswalks, and it's a distinctive sound that you'll notice non-stop as you peruse them. While we'll head to the Spanish Royal Palace shortly, I can't go without noting that the grand palaces and monuments along the Gran Via are just as ornate, golden-laced, and decorative. Being the capital of Spain, Madrid is, of course, the home to its government, and you'll notice the bold red and gold of the Spanish flag flying everywhere throughout the dozens of public plazas and atop the eclectic government buildings. This was a little surprising because, while in the United States this is normal, I've noticed quite the opposite in most other countries I've visited. But what I found really surprising was that this isn't limited to the Gran Via. Spanish flags were hanging out of people's windows. They were not, however, flying outside of everyday restaurants and stores. That's still very American. I was taken aback by just how green Madrid is, despite being such a large and dense city. I was even more taken aback by the fact that Madrid is home to one of the coolest city parks in the world. Parque del Retiro. In the heart of the city and created in 1680 as a royal park, Parque del Retiro became a public park in 1868 after the Glorious Revolution. And it's huge. 350 acres to be exact. The park is very much like Central Park in New York, except it seems to have mastered the art. There are hedge mazes beneath towering trees, royal and elegant monuments, large fountains, winding paths, flowers, and a huge aqua blue pond with people boating, surrounded by little cafes. One of the highlights of my time in Madrid was lazily paddling along the pond, taking in the soft sound of rippling water, ducks, and street musicians.
This is the best €6 I've ever spent.
Now the greenery here, and in Madrid overall, is pretty interesting. There's a blend of palm trees, evergreens, cherry blossoms, and towering oaks that give it the sensation of being in a very eccentric arboretum. As such, Madrid in general has a green touch to its scentscape, with notes of pine, various florals, and fresh earth, alongside the more aquatic scent of pond water. All things considered, I suppose a Madrid candle focusing on its more enjoyable features might smell like wet stone, buttery bread, chocolate, fried croquetas, pine needles, and some type of flower. A realistic candle to capture the smell of the city would also include the scents of cigarette smoke, ozone, and a musky cologne.
Now, before we dive into the experience of Spanish culture, there are a few little oddities about the city center that I want to touch on.
Like most other old European cities, the street signs are attached to the side of the buildings, but in some places, specifically in Centro, they're a bit more decorative than in other cities. There are cool little pineapple-shaped planters everywhere. Madrid is not an early morning city. If you're an early riser, you'll probably find most storefronts guarded by a metallic garage door, probably covered in graffiti. There are plenty of international chains, but not at the expense of Madrid's local identity.
Despite the fact that there are thousands of tourists, there's still an incredibly local feeling here. Like, Madrid is a proper city.
Tourist shops really lean into the flamenco and royal theme. While Madrid is home to one of the best and easiest to navigate metro systems in all of Europe, and Centro itself is extremely walkable, the city is very traffic heavy and gives off New York City vibes when it comes to the sounds of car engines, motorcycles, horns, and sirens. Madrid is the epicenter of Spanish culture and history, and there's no better place to start than the royal heartbeat of a former empire, the Spanish Royal Palace.
So the Spanish Royal Palace is the largest in all of Europe, is 1.4 million square feet, and has over 3,400 rooms. Let's go check it out.
A Baroque and classical architectural masterpiece, the Royal Palace of Madrid is the largest royal palace in all of Europe, at least currently in use. Before you enter the towering doors onto the sweeping marble staircase of the entrance hall, the stone-cobbled Plaza de Armeria sits behind golden-laced iron gates with beautiful views over the Campo del Moro Royal Gardens, where, in the distance, you can hear a rather striking and peculiar sound: peacocks. The hedge-lined royal gardens are home to several of them. Inside the sprawling palace, cavernous halls graced by magnificent marble staircases, larger-than-life golden crystal chandeliers, towering portraits, and bold red, blue, green, and yellow satin-covered walls layer the palace, a testament to Spain's wealth and imperial reach. The palace is also the home to the Spanish crown jewels. As you imagine yourself wandering the vast corridors and stately halls of the royal palace, you'll notice the sense of various perfumes and a bit of body odor, joining the mustiness of the old stone. Voices from the crowds of tourists echo from the marble and stone walls, alongside squeaking shoes. The air inside the palace is warm and a bit stuffy. Back outside of those imposing and regal palace walls, the sounds of trotting horses and royal fanfare join that regal soundscape at the occasional changing of the guard. In southern Spain, the Romani people, known as flamencos, developed a distinctive, colorful, and passionate form of dance. This style of dance, known as flamenco dancing, will put you in an absolute trance. I saw a show at Teatro Flamenco Madrid, and it was just incredible. There were 3 dancers and 3 musicians, playing guitar, drums, and singing, all sharing a small stage in an intimate dinner theater-like setting. Flamenco dancing is intense and extremely purposeful. Every movement, small or large, is direct, deliberate, and strong. There's a tangible sense of passion and even despair in the sets. A story of heartbreak or even euphoria told in its entirety through movement. Oh, and the show included sangria, so, it was pretty much the perfect experience.
The largest art collection in all of Spain is located right here in Madrid at the Museo del Prado. And that's where we're heading next.
The Museo del Prado, or the Prado Museum, is the main national art museum of Spain, and it's home to the Spanish Royal Collection. This is another one of those places that captures the sheer elegance and regality of the Spanish experience, from its marble Roman statues to its towering oil canvases to its majestic paintings of Spanish landscapes. If it's a rainy day, you've filled up on tapas, or you just aren't tired enough for an afternoon siesta, I'd highly recommend an afternoon in the Prado Museum.
Dining out is a quintessential part of Spanish culture, so it only makes sense that the food would be phenomenal.
Spanish food has quickly become one of my favorite cuisines in the world. The best part about the Madrid food scene is the diversity in its taste palette, from sweet to savory to fried and salty and everything in between. I couldn't try everything, of course, but these are the Spanish classics I did try that I feel like capture the Madrid experience. Croquetas. Let's start with the basics. Tapas, or little snacks, are the standard go-to in Spanish restaurants. One of my favorites of these little snacks is called croquetas. Fried little cylinders of happiness, croquetas can be filled with an assortment of things, but my favorite is a creamy filling encasing Iberian jamón. This is the perfect warm breakfast to accompany a cup of coffee on a rainy spring day. Paella. Tapas are great finger foods, but seafood paella is the elite dinner. A bit pricier than tapas, but certainly worth it, Paella is made in a cast iron skillet with delicious and saffron-seasoned bomba rice and stuffed with chicken on the bone and seafood ranging from mussels to shrimp. I mean, this is something that you just can't replicate elsewhere. The mussels and the shrimp on each paella dish I had, and yes, there were several, tasted incredibly fresh, and they were also usually still in the shell. The calamari sandwich. I know this looks like an onion ring sandwich, but it's fried calamari. It's just the bread and calamari, nothing too special, but it's delicious. It kind of gave me the sensation of a po' boy sandwich. This sandwich is also known as the Madrid sandwich, and it's a lunchtime staple here. I'd recommend Taberna La Española in Centro, but pretty much every lunch and dinner spot has them. Churros con chocolate. You can smell churros frying and sweet melted chocolate all over Madrid, from street stands to cafes to bakeries, which means that caving and eating them every single day is inevitable, and look, if you're dieting, you're gonna have a rough time. Crunchy, fried, and sweet, the most irresistible part of churros are the thick, rich mugs of melted chocolate in which you dip them. I mean, I could drink this stuff. And, well, actually, I did drink it. Not gonna lie. Sangria. Sangria is about as Spanish as it gets, and it works any time of the day. Essentially a fruit punch made of red wine and full of fruit, sangria is sweet, it's smooth, it's rich, and, dare I say, impactful. Pan con tomate and jamón. Iberian ham, or jamón, is a true delicacy in Spain. There are little jamón shops on what feels like every other street. The taste is so much stronger than any ham I've had before, and just salty enough to pair with practically everything. In this case, it comes layered on toast with a tomato puree, olive oil, and salt. The taste is so refreshing, and the tomato puree balances the salty jamón ridiculously well. As with most of the world's major cities, there's no way for anyone to truly capture the essence of Madrid in just one visit. In fact, I'd venture to say you could spend a lifetime in Madrid and never experience it all. Flamenco dancers, tapas, sangria, royal palaces, serene parks, stunning galleries, and gigantic public plazas may be the essentials, but there's so much more to experience in this beautiful Spanish capital city. I do hope, nonetheless, that you were able to place yourself imaginatively here through the sights, sounds, tastes, feelings, and smells that I experienced in Spain's most royal metropolis. As always, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.